Greetings to the President and Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema, officials, members of the War Council, Central Command Team, and fighters. And also special greetings to our viewers at home. Today we are here as the EFF in this month of Women's Month. We are honoring, celebrating, appreciating, and recognizing women who have played a pivotal role in shaping and paving the way for us as South African women. Today we are speaking to one phenomenal, strong woman who has played a decisive role, especially in the fraternity of SAFA. Today we are speaking to Maria Ledwaba. Maria Ledwaba, thank you and welcome, and thank you for agreeing to sharing the moment with us today.
Thank you very much for the EFF to invite me to have a chat on Women's Day. I really appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Now, Maria Ledwaba, some people in South Africa, they call you the godmother of the local sports. Some say your first love is soccer. And from us, re nyaka go tseba gore lerato la kgwele ya maoto le thomile kae. So can you tell us briefly about your background?
Yeah, well, my love for soccer started from the background where I come from. My family background is that I'm born in a family of boys only, so I'm the only girl. And you can just imagine at that time, the only sport to be played was only soccer. So that's the only place where I would follow them around. So my love for soccer started from there.
Okay, so even when you were still in high school, were you playing soccer as a young adult?
Unfortunately, I've never played soccer in my life, but I've played softball with the boys.
Okay.
When I was at high school, at Stutulani High School, that's where I played with the boys, soccer, but softball. But in regard to soccer, I've never played it, just the love of it, watching it, passion for it, and that's it.
All right. So we see that from the love of soccer and from you growing up in a family of boys, there's a point in your life where you took it upon yourself that now you are ready and prepared to own a soccer team. What we want to find out from you, May, is that the strength and the passion and the hard work and the determination, where does it derive from?
Yeah, well, just as I said, from the passion from watching my brothers, all of them played football. But it was at a time where I was staying with my brother, Kusisheho, and I was just watching young boys under 10, 12 playing at an open ground. And I decided to stop and watch them. And at that time, there was a competition called Cheppies Little League. Mm-hmm. So, and I asked them whether I could register them in that league. Well, they told me they are from two different teams, Stonebreakers and Naughty Boys. Those were the two popular teams in Seshego. So, but the majority of them was from Naughty Boys. So I decided to go and speak to the elders, because at that time Naughty Boys was actually run by the elders. You know, while I was a Naughty Boy fan, I was from a Naughty Boy family. I mean, from a Stonebreakers family. So I decided to go to Naughty Boys. But at the time also I was dating a player of Naughty Boys. So when I went there, I was allowed to register them in the Cheppies Little League, and that's how it started.
Now, your family and your community, did you get the support? Because I believe back then when you started, and the love and the passion, you'll find that you needed support, and as a woman wanting to take a lead in soccer, how was the community back then when you decided that this is what you want to do?
I think the success of this Cheppies Little League just made men to accept that this woman is for real. She know what she is doing. I have never had any struggle with the community, with my family. I mean, I'm born in my father passed on when I was 5 years old. I don't even know him. So my mother was very supportive. I actually never attended funerals, weddings. I would miss all those because I would be going with the boys to the field of play. So I really got support from the family, and I think that that's what was very important for me, that the community of Seshego, I will always be grateful to them, because they have never said, but this woman, what is she doing in the men's game? They really, really embraced the parents of the boys. Remember, these boys were like under 10, under 12, so some parents would have said, oh, no. But I even had 2 white players, that were in the team. Wow. Very unpopular at that time, but their parents also did not have an issue, because probably they looked at the role I played as a mother, and they just believed their children were safe with me when they go to do their practice and all that. And that's really how it all started, with this under 12 young boys.
Okay, and then now we come to Ria Stars.
Yes.
How did we get there?
As I say, we had these 2 big teams in Seshego, Naughty Boys and Stonebreakers. So most of the talented players were playing in those 2 games, two teams. So these players from Naughty Boys that were talented, they were never had an opportunity to play. Remember, in a game you've got only 18 players, 11 in the field and 7 on the bench. So they just felt their talent is going to be wasted because there's just no time for them to. And they came to my house. I was staying in Lubaho, and they said, "Mama, can you register us?" There was a competition called Toyota Under 21. So they said, "Can you register us in this competition?" But my view was that if you play in a competition and you are knocked out in the first game, then you're done. So what is next? And they said, okay, fine. There's a league called Smirnoff and Impala in the South African Football Association. Why don't we register in one of them? Obviously, when you start registering, it must be the Smirnoff, because that was the first league. The Impala League was the most senior league, So, but the then late President Ruben Muhashwa, when I went to his office to speak to him, because he knew the players that I was bringing into the league, he decided that, look, I think I would agree that you register in the Impala League, not the Smirnoff League. So I remember I paid 450 rand to register them. And that's how Ria Stars was born. Obviously, they said, what do we call this team? And then they had about 3 names: Ria Classic, Ria United, Ria Stars. And they finally agreed and said, oh, well, we believe we are stars. Let's call ourselves Ria Stars. And these boys, there were 5 boys, they actually went to get players. I never went to get, the players were, a list of players were brought by these 5 players and say, these are the players that we want them to play in this league as Ria Stars players. And believe me, the first year in that league, we won all the games and were promoted to the next level, which, remember, Impala was under the amateur, which is South African Football Association, but then we were promoted to NSL, which is PSL 3rd Division. That's when now things started to happen there.
Okay, now also, Mama, when looking in how you get to achieve with these 2 teams and finally be registered as Ria Stars, financially, how did you manage to get the resource? Because there are soccer kits that needs to be bought. When they need to go play with other teams somewhere else in other areas, they had to be transported. How were you managing that?
That was the most difficult one. You know, the difficulty of running a team. I don't believe that a lot of people understand the extent of the expenses that you go through as an individual to be able to run a soccer team. It's a very difficult exercise. You have to have exactly the clothing, you have to have transport, you have to provide meals for them. I always say the only market, the only place, organization where you take your players to training and to work, it's football. You know, because then you have to transport them. You have to pay them salary, but then you have to also transport them. It was the most difficult one. But I think I mastered somehow to go to the market and not ask for money. I have never had an account with money. You know, Riesta's account was always zero, you know. But what I did, I would go to the market out there. For example, I would go to the taxi industry. Okay. And I say to them, I've got a team, I need soccer boots. And they will tell me how many, and then I give them, they go and pay, and then we go and collect the boots. I went to a guy who owns a chicken farm in Polokwane, and I asked him for transport. He bought me transport, but on his name, but it was used by Riesas. Even the incentive for the players, I said, can you also pay for the incentive when they win? When they draw, when they lose, they don't get anything. So he did that. So my coach was from Free State. He needed 7,000 salary. We didn't have money in the account. The board was actually saying to me, but how are we going to pay him? And I said, but if you don't make a plan, we don't have a coach. Then I went to a company that produces juice, and I asked them to pay my coach. And the coach was earning his salary from that particular company. So, and I went to a legal firm. I asked them for an office. I had an office in town. So it's how I presented ourselves as Real Stars, and showing that I have boys that could go and play for the national teams, boys that are talented, that could go overseas, go and play overseas. And that's how Real Stars survived, because at that time there was nothing. You know, you got nothing. You register, you see I registered with 450. You couldn't even, after playing that league, get 450 back, you know, as a prize, for example. So we played for nothing. As I always say to people, I have contributed to football than received from football. Even when Real Stars went to the Premier League, we were getting a grant of 200,000 rand. My overheads were about 400,000 rand. So I have to get 200,000 rand from some either gate taking, or either I must get a sponsor that should give that kind of. So it was a very difficult time. But when I look back and I look at the players that came through Real Stars, I feel very proud, and I can look back with pride to say these are the players that I look at today. I see some are presenters on radio, some were played for bigger teams, some were captains of the team, but they all came from the hands.
Yeah, that is also one of the reasons that we wanted to have a conversation with you, because it is women like you that out of everything that is happening and with the odds against you, you would find a way and the strength and the resilience in you to be able to say that I would do that. So that is why we're here today, because we want to get wisdom from women like yourself that have done it before and are still standing, so that you could be able to guide us as young women in our different fields where we are. It might be in leadership, it might be in mining, it might be in the economy, wherever where women are making strides. So we need to sit with women like yourself so that you can guide us and also motivate us that it is possible as a young woman in South Africa that you can achieve your dreams. And also when we look at your history as well, it's very interesting that you are also have qualifications in ministry, which some of us, it's very much interesting.
Yes, no, I did that. I'm a member of Hope Restoration Ministry in Midrand. Our senior pastor is Dr. Pastor Mailola. Yes, I know a lot of people ask me, do you want to be a pastor? And I said, look, being a pastor is a calling, you know. But the reason why I did ministry, I'm a very spiritual person, and I felt I want to understand when I'm in a church and I'm listening to a pastor preaching. I must be able to understand. I must be able to understand the difference between Mark, Matthew, and, you know, in the Bible. There are differences. And I was very interested in that, to know that. And I must say, my first class year ministry, when I started, the lecturer there, you know, for example, was telling us about a prayer. What is a prayer? You know, and that was my first thing that I learned. Or a prayer, it's a communication between you and your God. And when you communicate with your parents, for example, you ask them something, you don't go to your parents and ask them and leave. You always sit there, waiting, I need money and I pocket money. You can't just say that and go. You wait for the answer. So I've learned that even with God, it's the same thing. You speak to Him. You can't just speak to Him and say Amen. You must wait for His answer. You must be able to wait. That's what I learned when I started my first class in ministry. Then I graduated in my ministry. Then I did my diploma. I graduated in my diploma. I did my degree. So it is basically, I have an understanding. So when I listen to a pastor preaching, I have a clear understanding of what he's talking about. And if he's talking things that I don't agree with, I would tell you, look, the first thing is that when you listen to a pastor, there must be a reference to the Bible. If the pastor can't just tell us about things without referring us to the Bible, so we always get a reference to the Bible. Then you understand, or you know, or this pastor knows exactly what he's talking about. So I empowered myself so that I know that I put God first. Everything I do, I think I'm a testimony of God's grace over my life, because in my journey of football, in my journey of working in business, I've gone through different challenges, and I was able to overcome them.
Now, looking into South Africa right now, Maria, we find that there are so many churches in South Africa at this moment. And having so many different churches in South Africa, and looking at the situation, because there are so many cases that are coming from churches that church leaders or pastors are violating the congregation, are violating young women. Some of these cases, we have seen them in TV, where they are dealing with gender-based violence, and some of them are rape allegation. So with the connection and with the study that you have done, what is it that you can be able to guide people, especially when we talk about faith and talk about the reality that we are seeing is happening right now?
Well, I think it's everything is in the Bible. I believe that every solution that we need in our lives, if you read the Bible, you will get that answer. There was a pastor at one of my cousin's celebration. She was healed, of cancer. So, and the pastor asked everyone who was in that gathering, who doesn't have a DVD, and all of us said we do. And I said, when you buy that, when you get into connect it in your house, do you ever get to read the manual? And most of us said, no, we don't. As long as you connect it and it works, you never read that manual. But if you go through that manual, it's equally the cell phone. When you receive a box of a cell phone, it has got a booklet. But do we ever read that booklet? No. Because that phone can do so much if you just read the Bible. So it's just like the Bible. If you read the Bible, if you understand, I've read the Bible from page 1 to page last. I don't even know how many times. Many a times I understand it. So every challenge, it's because people don't understand Christianity. They go to churches and the pastor tell them about how they do things, and they don't refer to any of the scripture, and young girls are getting violated. Yes, we have seen so many. My advice is that people have to know the Bible. If you say you belong to a church, read their Bible, because there's no church that is not based on the Bible. I think most churches that I know are based on the Bible. So they must just be able to understand that they can't be listening to a pastor telling them that, no, I want girls in my house, 10 girls in my house, and then you get there, you get abused, and you continue to be abused, and then at a later stage you come out and then you start speaking when maybe it is too late. So it is very important, and I think it's something that is happening even in the country with women, that we are silenced when things happen to us. I don't know whether we are afraid, whether we don't want to be victimized. We just too silent to talk about issues that confront us, because I just believe there are so many issues that confront women wherever they are, whether they are players, whether they are administrators, whether they are decision makers. We still have those challenges in South Africa, globally so too, because we hear of many women that go through those challenges.
Now, with Ria Stars, you got to a point where, what was your highest achievement with it? Did you achieve what you want, your vision with Ria Stars? Then until you get to, you sold it and then you moved on. Was that your vision, that you want to do that?
Yeah, what I did in 1989, when I was interviewed, my first interview with Bona magazine, they asked me what was my objective with this team, and I said to them, I'm giving myself 10 years, and in this 10 years I want to be the first woman to have a team in the Premier League, in the province, in my province, which is Limpopo. And indeed I was not. There was a man Real Rovers, that came before Ria Stars, but in 10 years I achieved taking this team to the Premier League. So that was my achievement, because that's what I put myself in. I said, this is the years that I put in myself, and indeed in 10 years, Ria Stars was playing in the Premier League.
And then right now, Maria, what is happening right now? Where are you at this moment?
Well, after Ria Stars was given back to, I didn't sell the team. I want that to be very clear. I know people say you sold the team, you sold our soul, but it was a very difficult time where, you come from my province. When you are in Limpopo, it's, there are no companies that you can sponsor. It's either you write a letter to Joburg or to Durban or to Cape Town. Those were the head offices of many of the companies. So it was very difficult, and I did not want Rea Stars to be ever remembered as a team that was ever relegated. You know, there's relegation and promotion, and you see most of the teams in our province get relegated and come back. So I didn't want that to happen, and it was basically because at some point I felt I'm not doing justice to the players. You know, they have salaries, they have families, they have got commitments, and if you can't pay them salaries at one point, then it affects their play in the field. And when the PSL decided, at that time we had 18 teams, so they wanted to reduce the teams from 18 to 16. So they asked 2 teams to give back their status to the league, and that's what I did. I gave my status back to the league. Then I said, look, I will see what I will have to do with my life. And then I was requested by SAFA under the leadership of Dr. Oliphant to take care of the high performance center girls. We had a program here under 19 girls. So I was managing that with the girls. Then I got invited to the Greek air conditioning company by men that were running there, saying, look, they don't have a woman there, they believe I can add value. Then I joined this company of air conditioning, and that's what I was doing. And until in 2013 I was requested by Dr. Denny Jordan to join his team when he was going for the first time, wanting to be the president of SAFA. Remember, he has been the CEO of SAFA, the CEO of the World Cup, and I decided to see. I'm actually not a politician. I'm struggling a lot in that field, because I'm a person who believes in achieving, you know, doing things the right way and doing things that you will see visible achievement. Yes. So I joined the campaign. Then in 2013, indeed, we won, and I was elected into the NEC of SAFA, and in 2018 I was then re-elected, and I was then elected also as the first woman vice president of SAFA.
Oh, congratulations on that. Now, in terms of the South African Football Association, especially when looking into women's sports, we had so many campaigns as women in the EFF, with other women in sports as well, where we had marches and we had protests and memorandum written to SAFA, mainly because there's an inequality that is currently happening in SAFA, and those women in sports, in soccer, they've raised so many concerns and issues that are happening in SAFA. So we just wanted to know that as the first vice president in SAFA, what are the challenges? Why is SAFA not treating women in sports equal to men in sports? What is the challenge?
Let me answer that by saying I don't think South African Football Association is not doing anything about the issue of women. In fact, if you look at the whole continent, we are one of the countries that have got even the national league, you know, of women. We have the provincial league, we have the regional league. We play leagues for girls. I'm talking in regard to football. And there is still a gap in terms of salaries, in terms of remuneration for girls. Basically because also the market, I don't know, I always say maybe we should do something as women's football that is not what men does. Because a sponsor out there is saying, why should I sponsor men's football, which is playing the same football, and the women's football that is playing the same football. Maybe we should show the difference between this particular, although we play the same rules and all that, we still lack sponsorship. You know, in our national teams, we still lack sponsorship. We are not able to attract sponsorships to make sure that these particular teams that are playing are reimbursed in terms of either it's an incentive or either it's a salary. It's an issue. You always hear men saying we don't have women, and you know the majority of women in this country are women. We recently have appointments of women. Those players that were playing for the national team, Lydia is also appointed as the CEO, Amanda Dlamini appointed as the marketer also there. It's a great step. That it's not enough. I'm in an NEC as a vice president. We have got 4 vice presidents. We have 1 woman vice president that I discussed with you earlier. That it was a decision that took like 2 years, 2 hours for us to be able to stand our ground as women, although we are in the minority. I mean, we have got 36 members, we only have 6 women now. So, but though at that time it was 5 women, but we stood the test of time and say, look, as a start, let's have, out of this 4 vice presidents, let's have 1 woman as a vice president. And we achieved it. And we achieved that by even insisting that this position must be endorsed in the Constitution, so that there is no debate when it comes to that. It is time now that we should have 2 vice presidents, women vice president, and all that. We should be seeing a CEO of SAFA being a woman at some point, you know. And I think we do have capability. I mean, Lydia is one good example of a young girl who actually played soccer, who actually became a team manager of Banyana. You know, she understands the culture of football. So as far as I'm concerned, when I look at the South African Football Association against the other federations, we have done much more than the other federation out there. We have women in the NEC. If you go to the continent, there are no women in the executive. If you go to CAF, there's only 1 woman in the executive of CAF. FIFA has said, look, we are transforming. There are more women now coming into. They are not enough also. We still believe that we can have more women there. But it is very important that when we speak about women's football in any federation, we should give women an opportunity to play a vital role in making sure that this game of women it's taken to another level. Because let me give an example. If Banyana plays, you normally would not find the interest of coming to the game like when Bafana play. When Bafana play, every NEC member, you'll find 36 NEC member there at the game. But you don't see that in the game of Banyana. So I'm saying it is an interest of women, and women should play a vital role to be able. And younger women, as you say, I think I wanted to retire. You know, I wanted to retire when we finish our term now, you know, because I have a strong belief that there are young women out there that can take over from where we have left and take the baton and take it to another level. So that's where we are as women. I think even in the country you can see that our parliament, we can see now we are happy to see women, we see the cabinet, we see more women, we see in my province in Limpopo there are more women in that cabinet than men. So we want to see that happening in the history of companies. We still have a very low percentage of CEOs in this country. You know, the percentage is very low. You know, so we need to see your leadership, you know, bring in those kind of issues that we see women indeed not being left out where they should be there, and be able to play a role collectively, all of us as women in different leadership, to be able to make sure that we support each other. There's one other thing, women don't support each other. When Popi becomes the DSG of EFF, it's women that don't support. You know, you find that you get congratulated by more men than women, you know, and they feel, no, she's there because of this other thing, they is there because of that. So I think women should start supporting each other. There are a lot of things that are happening around women that we don't. You find that a woman is all by herself. She has to stand up by herself and fight those ill treatments, or whether it's violation, whether it's abuse of power, on their own. And women just folding their hands and not getting involved at all.
Now, one would argue, especially when looking into SAFA and women in sports, that there might be transformation in terms of the position in the executive, in the NEC. You find that now there's more women there. But when you look at the grassroots, like you look at the ground level, women that are actually playing soccer on a daily basis, and they're playing banyana, and the former players, which we know very well that they've done very well in soccer. And sometimes some of these women, when you compare them with men that are playing soccer, you can clearly see that these women are doing great. So the argument now becomes that in terms of your sponsorship, that when sponsorship maybe come to the offices and they meet with the executive that they want to sponsor a team, the problem now that we don't understand as ordinary people is that the people that make the decision in terms of sponsor men or women, because women cannot do anything more extraordinary than what they are doing. Remembering that you, Maria Letaba, you are a mother, you are a grandmother, you are a wife. After you playing and going to train at the stadium, now you get home, you need to do all of these other tasks as well. And now you are like you are in under SAFA, and now you need to make those decisions. So it is unfair that when there's sponsorship or there's remuneration or there's any packages or benefits in soccer, women are overlooked. And I believe that is something that we need to really start speaking about it as much as possible. And we need to speak about it in any platform that we really get, because it is demoralizing, Maria, because there are young women that we see in our locations where we come from, and you can clearly see this child is gifted, there's talent there in sports, and you just hope and pray that I wish there could be somebody who could see and assist them. But when you look at avenues where you can take these young people, you find that there's no way where you can take them. So now, Mary, I just want to know, because I know that you also have you've got a foundation where you want to give back to the community. So your foundation, what is it that it's doing? How are you assisting and giving back to the community?
Let me just first answer that issue of the gap that is there. Indeed, you know, I always say, as long as we do not put measures in place for companies that have got capacity. Remember the NEC of SAFA, we are volunteers. We do not have the capacity to go and request for a sponsor. The only capacity that we have is to appoint. You know, we can appoint a marketing company. There are many marketing companies that are women, you know, they've got women. It's a woman's marketing company with capacity to go out there and knock on the doors of the companies, and we want your help, Poppy. Companies that we as women use their product on a monthly basis without fail. As long as you are 12, you start using their product. But what do they do to women? Do they give back to women's sporting organization? No, they do not. Even when you go to FIFA, you do not have FIFA having the companies like Johnson & Johnson, the company that are basically producing products for women. So I think those are the things that we need to concentrate on, just to make sure that a girl that is playing in the National League right now, it's able to take a salary home. It must not be an incentive. And I can tell you right now, it's an incentive. You know, they play there week in, week out, but ask how much are they earning? The owners of the team are ordinary people. They are trying their best to give whatever they can give. It's not enough. We still need to do a lot as the executive to find companies that can be able to go out there and be able to assist. The legends, we have got so many legends. You can name them. What are we doing after they've played 100 games for the National League? What do we do to these particular girls? We have school sports. We control school sports. We have taken over school sports. How can we not get a partnership with Department of Education, Department of Sports, to take these legends to go out there and be able to help us with school sports, because they can do that, you know. So those are the things that I believe we need to engage with the Department of Education, Department of Sports. I don't believe it is the responsibility of teachers. I understand that parents believe in teachers because they know them, but if it's a league of girls at a school, how best can you have the legends that were there to go there and do those exercise trainings and give us the list, and then we have a database of girls. So we can be able to do that. Yes, I have established a foundation. It's still very new. This is my second year, but the reason why I have established that Real Doga Foundation was basically because my 33 years of football, I have been supported by communities out there. They stood up, they came to the game, they supported me. I wanted to have something, my legacy, to go back to the community in many different ways in the sport. And my foundation does not only deal with soccer, because I was in soccer. I've selected a few sporting codes, and I said, look, the urban area, they are next to the sponsors, they see a lot of things, they've got academies, they've got all these things. Let's look at the rural area. Is there, I see a soccer player, whether it's a girl or a boy, talented, the talent just end up there because there's no one seeing them. That is why I'm saying the legends must play a role. You know, there's no province that doesn't have legends. So we must utilize these legends at the schools to be able to get the talent that I'm talking about. So my foundation, that's what we'll be doing, working with some legends in all the provinces in the rural area where they are living, where the communities know them, and they will identify that. We'll take those young boy or girl, take them to an academy where they can be developed. I would want to see Ria Ledwaba Foundation having to look back and say, look at that boy, she is playing for Barcelona. He comes from this rural area and from this academy, and Ria Ledwaba Foundation contributed to that leadership. We're speaking about how do we have qualified leaders, with capacity. We must capacitate women, have those courses for them, and be able to achieve in terms of women in leadership position. The gender-based violence, we spoke about girls that are abused in sports. It's in soccer. It's rife, where you find the coach, it's a man, and the girls are abused throughout the years. You only know about it when the coach has been fired, or when the coach is no more in the team. The girls now start saying, I was raped, I was sexually harassed, I was sexually harassed. And what do? Because they come from poor families. The families live with it. The girl live with it. She's suppressed. She never goes out with that quality talent. It's wasted. So I'm saying those young girls need support. If then it's there on the website, anybody can go on the website, and if you are abused, if you're that, put your application there. Let's look at the type of abuse, what we can assist, whether it's counseling, whether it's taking the matter to the court, and all that. We are helping a girl in PE that was sexually harassed by a Zambian coach at the SAFA Cup. So we are busy with that. We have assisted her. We have appointed a lawyer there. The case is going on the 11th and 12th of August. So, and she's confident now, because all the time when you speak to her, it's like she wasn't sure whether she really, she opened a case, but I don't know whether, she had a lot of doubts, But as soon as Ria Ledwaba Foundation came on board and said, we'll assist you, then she is very confident. She says, I can actually now speak to the media because I do not want to settle. I don't want anybody to come and talk to me about settlement, because I want this case to be heard. Because that's what people do. They abuse these girls, and then they come and offer them some money, and then the whole world starts saying, no, women, it's always about gold digging. They want the money and all that. So this is what Ria Stars does. And I just said to you, during the July 18th, we decided, okay, it's Mandela's Day, 111, he would have been 103. We decided to say we are going to buy 103 blankets and distribute them to the needy. Yes, we went to some crèches, hopeless. You find 3 young girls or boys sleeping with one blanket, and we felt maybe we should contribute those blankets. And I went on my status, and I just said, this is what we're going to do. Please, we can do more if we come together and all that. And believe me, it was a week or 2 weeks request. But by the 22nd of July, we had 540 blankets that was delivered to 11 NGOs. So, and we felt great about it. Basically, that the public contributed. Real Ledwaba Foundation would have contributed just a small amount of 100, but look at just posting, so you can see that the community knows something that is valuable, and they were able to contribute, and indeed were able to give those blankets to those particular NGOs that do not have anything.
That is very true and profound indeed, Maria, because you also mentioned that one of the challenges that we as women we face is that we do not support each other, because women on a daily basis are being oppressed and are being exploited. And it is very challenging that when as a woman you are being violated, and might be at work, at home, or maybe any other space where you find yourself at, and you feel that your rights are being violated, and you are ashamed to speak out, you are ashamed to seek help, because you are scared that some people might not believe you, might not support you. So we are very much grateful that you are at a point where you have a foundation where you are going to be able to assist young women and assist communities, especially in rural areas, especially when we talk about the scourge of gender-based violence, because even ourselves at the EFF Gender-Based Violence Desk that we established last year, we have so many cases of women, especially women in high-profile position, and women that we see sometimes on TV, and ordinary women and children, where they really prepared and they are tired. They want to do something about their situation, but they are scared. The fear that we live in, it is the fear that is holding us back as women to achieve our goals and our dreams. So we are very much proud when we meet women like you, and we get to learn about your story and your life, and from there we can be able to say, if Mama Riele Dwaba did that back then in the 80s, to stand up and say, I'm not a boy, but I love soccer, I'm passionate about soccer, and I'm prepared to take the money that I have, as little as it might be, 400 rand, to go and register a team and support them with everything and that you have, so that they could be where they are today. Now, I want to know that how did you get to balance all of that, being a young woman, being a wife at some point, being a mother, a grandmother, and also having your time, your own space? How do you find the balance, and how do you do that?
Let me first respond to what you said. You are a leader in the EFF, and I'm sure there are challenges in the EFF. I think there is always some kind of challenges. If we see you resigning from EFF, we start saying, we thought that woman, she's strong, she can stand up, because you are not there holding that position for yourself. You are holding that position for the next generation. The next generation is looking, okay, we can see there are women there that can stand the test of time. So it is important that when we are in leadership, we must stand the test. We mustn't be afraid to be to stand up and challenge the abuses, and challenge the violation, and all those challenges that we have. We must be able to say, as long as it's against women, we must be able to see you as a leader there in the EFF, standing up, and we know that we can trust with our next generation. That's my view in terms of where we are now, because challenges are everywhere. You know, it's not only at one particular places. So, look, I think I always say to people, everything that you do with passion, you are able to connect. You know, if you plan, I always say to people, it's the passion, it's the discipline, and it's the planning. You plan around your family, you plan around the games that you are going to play, you plan around going to the boardroom, you know, these are the times. You have to have a schedule, plan that you plan and say, this is how I'm going to be able to play around and not offend my family. You know, my children used to say, oh, Rena, if we ask you something, you don't have it, Marata Pelodiao or Pitiko Mudise comes here, they need money, you have that money. So, but they understood the love that I have for the game, and they understood the love that I have for them as my kids.
Now, for this month, since we are celebrating Women's Month, what is the one message that you would like to share with all South African women?
Bobby, I'm overwhelmed by a lot of webinar, a lot of talk about women, and I'm sure you'll know that by August there's a lot of topics about women, and I have not seen a topic where we bring men. I always see women defending themselves. No, this is not happening. I'm putting up a webinar, you know, before the end of August. And I have asked the chairman of the board of Rias Lidwaba Foundation to go and identify 4 CEOs, men CEOs, and there will be, the presenter will be a woman. And we want to know from them why at this juncture we still struggle to get women in the decision-making body. Maybe let the men tell us, or what is it that we are not doing. I'm still concerned with the talks that we have with no implementation. What do we do? I think gender-based violence, as we have spoken, me and you, enough of the talk. You know, we have been talking, but we still see South Africa is there. You know, with gender-based violence, you will find that so many women are killed every day in South Africa. And we keep on saying, no, we must do that. Maybe we must engage men. You know, maybe men must also participate in implementing. How do we then just implement as government? How do we able to stop gender-based violence? We must start seeing things happening. I think we have been talking for ages, and I think it hasn't helped us to talk. We must be able to see some measures taken. You guys in Parliament, you must be able to put measures and say, this is what we need to see happening there, and so that we don't have that. Maybe we should start having these lessons in the school. You know, where young boys start learning, or this is a woman that is in your class, it's a human being like you. You know, maybe they should start learning there from that age, so that we have maybe what we have a subject in school where we deal with gender-based violence, and maybe we would be able to have that mentality from that age of boys, because yes, it's not only men abusing, there are women abusers also out there, but because the class is boys and girls, we might be able to get the results out of there, just like sports. At our time, we were having Wednesday and Friday, there was time. After break, they were doing sports. Yes, but it's gone. So you ask yourself, for Harry go South Africa, a player is a good player, rally 18 years. He might be getting married the next month. How we go, how level Barcelona, how level AC Milan, how the player is young, ali there 14, that big team. So we must be able to take Vanavarena primary. If Arada ball, we must play ball. If Arada rugby, must play rugby. If that's why we wanted to go to the multiracial schools, private schools. They don't play soccer. They play all the other sports in the rugby and all that are there, but soccer, we're still lacking in those schools. So that's where we should be able to make sure that there in Parliament you are assisting us to say, what do we do for sports in the school like we were? I'm not athletic, I know I can run there, I know, or on a swimming pool I can swim. So how do you even have a swimmer? There's no swimming pool. If I swimmer, I must take him to a place in Zanin where there's a swimming pool and I must go and pay. Why don't we have this thing if you want somebody to do? Yes. What the Olympic will always have fewer medals because if you look at the gold, it's always white people. Because they've got the facility, they've got everything. Our black people, they don't have those facilities. So those are the things that we still lack in terms of sports facility, especially girls. When Baba team ebapala kwa honotla team ya ABC Mutsipebara, no, Lena you can't play. Yeah, so girls still, even in the national league, they still struggle just to get a facility. If only ABC Mutsepe, they don't get that facility. Even Babukili, Batorae, no, Obapala team, first division, Obapala team, and then Bona, they must go and look for a field somewhere else. So those are the things. It's still a challenge. I'm not saying they can be done in 1 year or 2 years, but we must try to move to a point where how na school, sa a private school next to the government must make a plan. We can't have an open field with ground next door. Ili is a white school, the ground is 11. Mara, this poor school can't go and play there. So those are the things that we must look at and try and change.
Maria, thank you very much for your time, and may God bless you and protect you, and wish you all the best in life.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.